My father, before coming to this country, was the third secretary, I believe, to the then Prime Minister of Jamaica. My uncle, prior to my father leaving, was also in politics. His name was Arthur Jones. He ultimately died around 1995 with a legacy of the longest serving MP in Jamaican history. He was once the mayor of Kingston, Jamaica. And so I had members of my family who were involved in politics, and there were other people outside of my family circle that even as a young child I could see there were differences. Elements of my family would stop me from going outside in the street to play on occasion, because we lived in a very big house and we were behind a big fence, and it's like they didn't want us to go out and mix with the other children and things of that nature. So there were many things, and mostly it was confusion for me. I just didn't know what life was about, and I had questions. And then my father, as I said, came here, then my mother followed, then my elder sister came, and then it was left with my younger brother and myself in Jamaica, and then ultimately we followed on to England. And when I arrived here, just another whole ream of confusion and questions came up because of the culture shock, because of the different reality of now finding myself for the very first time in my life seeing white people and then being confronted by the reality of the history of my people here, which came to me not necessarily directly by any of my parents or any of my peers really telling me what was going on, but things I heard and picked up, and things I experienced for myself when I first went to school in this country. So there was, I don't know if I've been specific enough about the type of questions, but really there was a lot of, my formative years, I believe, were really confused, because I believe I wanted guidance. I think there was a lack of parental guidance there because of the manner in which my parents came to this country, left me with my uncle and auntie and other relatives in Jamaica. And then when I came here, not long after coming to this country, my mother and father split and ultimately divorced. There was, big problems between them domestically, and my younger brother and I flew into that reality. And within a very short space of time of coming here, I came here in 1967, and by 1970, 72, I was in children's homes and going on from there into approved school and so on and so forth, because of the disintegration of my family unit.
Right. So your first exposure to the nation's teachings, was that here in the UK?
Yes. The first time that I heard anything about the teachings of the Most Honourable Elijah Muhammad, the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, was at the time when the ban was imposed, which was around 1985, 86. And at that time, I was really known, or was becoming known at that time in this country as a black activist, because at that time it was 81 and 85 that there were major disturbances, what the media called riots and what we at that time called uprisings of our people, based on police brutality, oppression and other things taking place in the inner cities. At that time, in 85, I was on many of the demonstrations in this country, and I was a part of a movement that was protesting and demonstrating against the apartheid regime in South Africa. And we would go into shops and fill up our supermarket trolleys with South African goods, check them all through the checkout, and then refuse to pay for them because we said this was blood money. So we were involved in doing things of that nature. And it was at that time that a brother, I can't remember who it was one of the other activists on one of these demonstrations, said to me that there was a man in America who had been banned from this country, and he didn't have very much information except to say that this man, the language he used was that this man loves black people, he's standing up for black people, and he was banned, and his name was Farrakhan. The name sounded very strange to me, Farrakhan. I really didn't understand what kind of name that was, but nevertheless, I found myself outside the Home Office demonstrating for the ban on the Honourable Farrakhan to be lifted, even though I didn't really know much about him. But all I did know, according to what I'd been told, was that this man was a fighter and a lover for black people. As a young person growing up in Jamaica, as far back as I can remember, I was one of these individuals who was searching. I had questions in my mind and in my heart that I wanted answers to, really pertaining to myself as an individual, but also pertaining to the world, bigger issues, things that I saw, things that I didn't understand. And so throughout my life, in truth, I believe that I've been searching for answers. And ultimately, the Nation of Islam, the teachings of the Most Honourable Elijah Muhammad, in my view, really answers for me many, in truth, if not all of those questions that I've always been searching for throughout my life. And as an individual, when I heard the teachings of the Most Honourable Elijah Muhammad as taught by the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, it was really, for me, like a light going on in a very dark place. And I really, ran towards the teachings, because the teachings, not just as a philosophy or as doctrine, but really as a way of life, for me, makes 100% common sense, far more than some theoretical belief system or religion. Really, indeed, a complete way of life.